Yo, what is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the third episode of the After the Whistle podcast. I am your host, Owen Tomko, and today's show we will be going over the latest college football playoff rankings and the conference championship predictions. So it'll be a pretty short one today. We'll have an episode out tomorrow, previewing pretty much the big games that are gonna go on tomorrow. Should expect that around midday tomorrow. So let's jump right into it. These are as of week 14, college football playoff rankings. We are only in week 10 of the season, but since games have been postponed and stuff like that, it is week 14. So jumping right into it, we'll go 25 to 1. You gotta remember the top 4 teams make the playoff, and yeah. So starting off at number 25, we have the Louisiana Region Cajuns at 8-1. We have 24. We have the Tulsa Hurricanes. I think they're 5-1. 23, you have the Oregon Ducks at 3-1. 22, you have Washington. They are 3-0. 21, you have the Marshall. You have Marshall. I don't know their mascot. I think they're the Marshall. I think they're the Herd or something like that. The Green Herd. I can't remember. They're 7-0. USC is 20th ranked at 3-0. 19th is Iowa, 4-2. Number 18 is Coastal Carolina. Never thought I'd be saying that. They are at 9-0. Number 17 is North Carolina. They are at 6-3. Wisconsin at 16. At 2-1. Oklahoma State at 15 at 6-2. Northwestern is at 14 at 5-1. BYU is 13 at 9-0. Indiana, they are 5-1 and they are number 12. Oklahoma, they are 11th at 6-2. Miami, University of Miami, they are number 10 at 77-1. Iowa State is at number 9, they are 7-2. The Georgia Bulldogs, they are number 8 at 6-2. Cincinnati, the Bearcats, they are number 7 in the country at 8-0. You have Florida at number 6 at 7-1. Number 5, you have the Texas A&M Aggies at number 5 at 6-1. You have Ohio State at number 4 at 4-0. You have Clemson at number 3 at 8-1. And you have Notre Dame at number 2 at 9-0. And you have Alabama at number 1 8-0. So the reason Northwestern's down at 14, they were previously ranked number 8 in the country, and they dropped with a loss last week to Michigan State, so they dropped down to 14. Oklahoma State jumped up 8 spots in the rankings, coming off a win against Texas Tech. North Carolina, this one's kind of a shocker because they lost last week to Notre Dame. They lost 31-17 to Notre Dame. And they moved up 2 spots, which you don't really see, especially with no team moving down below them. You have Iowa, who jumped up big in the rankings. They went from 24 to 19 with a 26-20 win over Nebraska. You have Oregon, who dropped down to 23 with that late loss to Oregon State, that heartbreaking loss to Oregon State. And yeah, so going in, we are going to look at the All-State Playoff Predictor. It's a predictor that predicts the chances of making the college football playoff and chances of winning it. So Alabama, of course, they're 8-0. Nobody expects anything different. They have a 96% chance to make the playoff and a 53.7% chance to win the national championship. I agree with that. I mean, unless they lose this week, I don't know who they're playing. Let me look. But we'll go into the schedule tomorrow. But they play at LSU. If they manage to lose to LSU and then lose to Florida in the conference championship game, that's the only way I see them not making it. Surprisingly, up next you have Ohio State. They are 4-0 and they have a 78% chance. 78.1% chance to make the playoff and a 19.3% chance to win the title. I strongly am going to stick to my opinion and say that is bogus. I don't think they should be in the playoff, honestly. I mean, Do I think there's any other teams that are better than they are? Yes. But they're only 4-0. They're probably only end up going to play 6 games, and their strength of schedule is god awful. I mean, I'll go into that later, but their remaining 2 games, they have Michigan State and Michigan, who are 2 below 500 teams. They're not very good. Last week they played Illinois. The toughest game on their schedule was number 12 Indiana, who they only beat by 7, I do believe. Going in up next, you have Notre Dame. They have, according to the All-State Playoff Predictor, they have a 68.1% chance to make the playoff and an 8.2% chance to win the title game. I see that happening. Notre Dame, they have 1 game left, seeing they had not this week's game, but the week after, they were supposed to play Wake Forest at Wake Forest. They had that game canceled by the ACC, not by Wake Forest, not by Notre Dame, by the ACC. So that means they have Syracuse this week, who is not very good. I think they're 1-8 on the year. So hopefully they can take care of them, which I do expect them to take care of them. And they are guaranteed into the ACC championship. Their first year in a conference ever. I think this is their first year ever in a conference. First year they're going to the conference championship game. Up next, you have Clemson, who is 8-1. They have a 50.7% chance to make the playoff and an 11.7% chance to win the title. I think that's too high. I mean, considering they are almost a lock into the ACC championship game, unless they lose this week to Virginia Tech, which again I don't see happening. Then they would have to play Notre Dame again in the ACC championship game, and Notre Dame would actually technically be the home team, even though they're going to Charlotte, North Carolina to play that game. So they very well could lose that game and it'd be 2 losses. So I think that's why they're at 50%, because they could get in, they could beat Notre Dame and get in, and they could not be and if they don't beat Notre Dame, then they're not in. I see it. Up next, you have Cincinnati at 35% and a 1.8% chance to win the title. I'm just going to stop saying win the title now because everything is below 1%, because these are all the teams that could get in, but more than likely are not going to go much further than the first game. Cincinnati, they're undefeated, which is the reason they actually have a shot at the playoff. I see that happening. I don't see them making the playoff because unless Clemson loses. So Cincinnati would have to win out and Clemson would have to lose again, which, once again, is very possible. But I don't think Cincinnati, none of these teams, outside of maybe a few here and there, can compete in the playoff. I think other than Alabama, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Clemson, Florida, and Georgia. I think those are the only teams that can compete in the playoff. So I mean, they might make the playoff, but they would get boat raced. Up next, you have Cincinnati. I already said Cincinnati. Next up, you have BYU at 9-0. They have a 23% chance to make the playoff. The reason I would say that's a little high. I mean, they haven't played anybody. They're 9-0. They have not beat. Out of their 9 wins, they have not won a Power 5. They have not won against a Power 5 opponent. And they did turn down the opportunity to play Washington I think it was last week. But they do have a big game this week on Saturday against Coastal Carolina, who is ranked. But once again, they're not a Power 5 team. Let's see. A&M you have next at 14%. Possible. I don't see happening because they're probably going to have one more loss. I don't think they'll make their conference championship game. USC, no question. They shouldn't be in. They shouldn't even have a chance because they're only going to play like 6 games. That's not biased, by the way, because I know I'm a Notre Dame fan and I don't like SC. But I don't think, even if they win their conference championship game, they're still playing only like 6 or 7 games. I don't think, considering Notre Dame has been has been targeted as, since they're not in a conference, they don't have that 13th data point or the 13th game to base their data off of. I think any team who's not playing a full schedule or playing more than 10 games should be eligible for the playoff. That's just my opinion, though. But knowing the College Football Playoff Committee, they will spin any situation to get Ohio State into the playoff. Florida at 7-1. I don't see it happening, but it very well could happen. They would have to win out and win their conference championship game against Alabama, who is no easy task for any team to face. But it's possible if they win. They would have to have Clemson would have had to have lost. I don't think a one-loss Florida team would get in over a one-loss Clemson team. I just don't see it. And I don't think a one-loss Florida team would get in over a one-loss Alabama team. But that's pretty much it for that. I agree with some of them. I disagree with some of them. But now we're going to go into conference championships, like predictions and stuff like that, based on, because we're still like 2 games out of the end of the season, or 3 games out, whatever you want to say, depending on how many games are left. So this could all change. This could all be just thrown out the window if some miracles happen. But atop of the AAC, which is the American Athletic Conference, you have the undefeated 6-0 Cincinnati Bearcats, who look like they're going to be playing the Tulsa Golden Hurricanes. So I was right on Hurricane, just forgot the golden part. In the conference championship game, Cincinnati, they are 6-0 in conference because they are undefeated, and Tulsa, they are 5-0 in conference with an overall record of 5-1. You got to remember that conference championship games aren't based off win-losses; it's based off conference win-losses. So Tulsa has 1 loss, but they are undefeated in conference play. So that's all that matters. The only team, there's 1 or 2 teams that can compete for that, and that's the Memphis Tigers, who they are 4-2 in conference, and you have the UCF Knights, who are 5-3 in conference. I don't see that happening. I think it's going to be Cincinnati and Tulsa, unless Tulsa manages to throw everything out the window and lose out, which I don't see happening. Mind you, I don't watch Tulsa at all because why? They're Tulsa, right? But then you go into the ACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference. You have some good teams in there, actually. You have Notre Dame, who is 8-0. They are guaranteed a spot in the ACC championship game because their game next week, like I said, against Wake Forest was canceled by the ACC. They canceled it, and Notre Dame owns all the tiebreakers for any team, so they can lose this week, and it still wouldn't matter. They're still in. But unless some miracle happens and Clemson loses to Virginia Tech, you will more than likely see a Notre Dame-Clemson ACC championship game. Clemson is 7-1 in conference, and their 1 loss is to Notre Dame. Behind them, you have number 10 Miami Hurricanes. They are 6-1 in conference. Their 1 loss is also to Clemson, or not also to Clemson, is to Clemson. So even if Clemson was to lose and Miami was to lose, it wouldn't matter because Clemson beat them, so Clemson has the tiebreaker over them. And then the other teams, they don't really have a shot. You have North Carolina, it's 6-3 in the conference. They don't have a shot at the playoff. They are mathematically eliminated. Next, you move on to the Big 12 conference. Which will more than likely, it's actually not more than likely, because this is a very tight conference, and there are some pretty good teams, and there are some not so good teams. The team that is guaranteed, I want to say, like I said in the last video, that I think they're guaranteed a spot in the Big 12 championship game, and that is the Iowa State Cyclones. They are 7-1 in conference. I think their 1 loss was to, I want to say their one loss was to Oklahoma, but let me just take a quick peek at that. Sorry about the dog. Actually, no. Oh yeah, their one loss was to Oklahoma State in conference. They lost 24-21. Oklahoma State was number 6 at the time. So, sorry about the dog again. I don't know what he sees, but something he doesn't like. So then it would be up against Oklahoma State, and I think Texas is the other are the 3 teams that have a shot at making it. I very well could be wrong on that, but I know Oklahoma is 5-2 in conference, and Oklahoma State is also 5-2 in their respective conferences. Actually, so you have Oklahoma State at Oklahoma at 5-2 in conference. You have Oklahoma State at 5-2 in conference. You have Texas, who is 4-3 in conference, and you have West Virginia, who is also 4-3 in conference. So all 4 of those teams have a shot at making the Big 12 championship game. I think they're going to play Iowa State. My greater guess would be Oklahoma State. So it would be Iowa State, Oklahoma State in the Big 12 Conference Championship game. I don't know. Could be wrong on that one. Oklahoma is a good team, but I think Oklahoma State will make it. I mean, you can't count out Texas or West Virginia, even though it's very unlikely. They still have a shot. Now you move on to the Big Ten, and the Big Ten's an interesting conference because they have an East and a West division, or conference, whatever you want to call it. I think it's the top 2 teams in each respective division go play each other in the title game. So yeah, let's just assume that's how it works. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Pretty sure that's how it always works. But in that case, you would have Ohio State at 4-0. They have 4 wins in conference, and they've only played 4 games. So you gotta remember that. You would have Indiana. I don't know, because I don't know who would own the tiebreaker. It'd be Indiana, because Indiana has more points. So Indiana, they're the front runner for the second spot in the Big Ten Conference, or Big Ten Conference Championship game at 5-1. You have Northwestern on the other side of the division bracket conference at 5-1, and you have Iowa on the Northwestern side at 4-2. So 3 teams, Indiana, Northwestern, Iowa, all have a shot at that Big Ten Conference Championship game. Ohio State, they're probably only going to play 6 games, but it doesn't matter, which I think is wrong. But it doesn't matter since if they only play 6 games, as long as they're undefeated in conference. I would have to say I would say Indiana that will go play Ohio State again. Oh wait, no, if it's the top team in each conference, never mind then. If it's the top team in each division conference, it'd be Northwestern. I'd say Northwestern still hangs on. They're 5-1. They're 1 game up on Iowa, which I very well think they can hold on to. So that's good. I'm not even going to go into Conference USA. Not going to go into the MAC. Don't want to touch the Mountain West. We'll go to the Pac-12. So we'll go to the Pac-12 now. Leader in the North Division Conference. I'm just going to keep saying that because I don't know which one's correct. You have the Washington Huskies, 3-0. And then you have the Oregon Ducks at 3-1. Oregon's one loss is to the Oregon State Beavers, which nobody expected, but is a big loss for Oregon. They really haven't. I mean, they're 3-1, so can't really say anything bad about them. And then on the other side of on the South Conference Division, whatever, You have USC at 3-0, and then you have Colorado actually at 2-0. My guess is USC holds on to that spot. I don't think Washington. I don't want to make this. Washington's going to win that side, or that side of the Pac-12. So it would be a Washington USC division or conference championship game, and mind you, that should have no effect on the college football playoff because each team would have only played maybe a maximum of 6 or 7 games, not counting cancellations and stuff like that. Next, we move on to the SEC, Southeastern Conference, which is home to the powerhouses, according to everybody. So on the East Division Conference, atop it is the 7-1 Florida Gators. Behind them is the 6-2 Georgia Bulldogs. Pretty much it's going to be Florida from that side. And then on the other side, you have Alabama. So I'm not even going to go into any detail there. It's going to be Florida, Alabama in the SEC championship game. I don't know. That's pretty much that. And then you have... I don't want to go into the Sun Belt playoffs, but I kind of feel like I have to because they're actually not terrible this year, but they're not very good. On the east side of the conference division, you have Coastal Carolina. I'm not even going to try and pronounce their mascot or nickname because no. They're 7-0. Behind them is the Appalachian State Mountaineers. They've already played actually. So they've already played this year, and Coastal Carolina did win. So unless they're still one game behind. So Coastal Carolina very well could lose to BYU this week, and Appalachian State could win this week, which would put Appalachian State actually still behind because Coastal Carolina has the tiebreakers. On the other side, you have the Louisiana Region Cajuns. I don't see them losing their division. They are 3 games up on the South Alabama Jaguars. Not pretty in the Sun Belt. But, so I will go into a quick college football playoff prediction. My personal opinion on the final college football playoff rankings, which will be actually after the conference championship game. That's what'll decide who's in, who's out. Alabama. So we'll go from 6 up to 1, just because I feel like that's the best way because teams in the hunt, teams not in the hunt, whatever. It's gonna be hard because I have to predict. I'm gonna try and predict games in advance. I'm just gonna go with the basic here. I'll go from top down because that'll be the easiest. Alabama at 1. I see them winning out, and I do see them winning the conference championship game against Florida. Even though that'll be a very, very good game, I think Florida has a very good offense, and Alabama has a very good offense. That'll be a very, very good football game. I don't see them losing it. I very well could change my opinion when I make the conference championship prediction video, whatever you want to say. That week, the conference championship week schedule, whatever you want to call it. And number 2, it can flip-flop here. At number 2, you can have either Clemson or Notre Dame. I would say Notre Dame because they're 9-0. They're going to win out. They got one more game this week against Syracuse. They're going to win that. Then they would go play Clemson in the ACC championship game, which I don't highly expect them to win, but I expect them to win. I expect pretty much the same result as when they played in the regular season. But if that's the case, then Clemson would fall out. They would have 2 losses. But if Clemson wins, I would still say Notre Dame's number 2, because Notre Dame beat them. It depends on how bad we lose. We beat them first. We have, I would assume we would have the tiebreaker over them. I very well could be wrong. But 2 and 3 don't really matter because they'll play each other. So we potentially could have Notre Dame Clemson for a 3rd time this year. But instead of actual regular season, it's in the college football playoff. At number 4, it pains me to say it, but Ohio State. I don't see them losing. I don't see them losing their conference championship game against whoever it is, Northwestern or Iowa. I don't see them losing that. I don't see them losing next week against Michigan State. Or, I don't know. That'll be a topic to come, though. I don't see them losing to Michigan. Michigan, I mean, I don't know. Ohio State shouldn't get in. I've already said it earlier in this video. I don't think they should be in because they don't play enough games. But, like I said, the College Football Playoff Committee will spin a situation where they get in. At number 5, I would say Georgia. You can't. Yeah, I think I will. Number 5, I would say Cincinnati. I don't see Cincinnati losing either. I think they win out and they win their conference championship game. The thing is, I said it before, I'm going to say it again. I don't think the College Football Playoff Committee could put an undefeated Cincinnati and undefeated BYU. I don't think they can put those 2 undefeated teams and put them over or I don't think they will. I don't think they'll put them over a 1-loss Ohio State team. Ohio State, if they lose, they're done. I don't believe, once again, I still don't believe they should be in. Predicting they will be in, even with the 1 loss, they should not be in. Because they wouldn't have won other games. They'd probably have 6 games. They would go, what would it be? 7-1? Or 6-1? Which, no, you can't have. You can't have a team 6-1. With that being said, though, if Northwestern was to win out and they beat Ohio State in the conference championship game, they would be 8-1. I would take a 1-loss Northwestern team with 8 wins, who beat Ohio State in the conference championship game. I would take them over Ohio State for that number 4 spot. That would move Ohio State down. But okay, screw that. Alabama 1, Notre Dame 2, Clemson 3, Ohio State 4, Cincinnati 5, and Georgia 6. I think Georgia wins out. It doesn't really matter. There'll be a 2-loss team. With that being said, Texas A&M would have to lose. Florida would have to lose. And here's the thing. So if Alabama was to lose to Florida, I don't see Florida getting in, even though they beat them in the conference championship game. I don't think they would put a 1-loss Florida team who beat Alabama in the conference championship. I don't think they would put them over Alabama. Mind you, I can go into so many different perspectives on this, so many different scenarios, let's just say, yada, yada, yada. But, like, the most realistic situation, Alabama 1, they win out. Notre Dame 2, they win out. Clemson at, not Clemson at 3. Ohio State at 3, because Clemson were to lose, would have to lose in the ACC championship game. Which would probably put Cincinnati or BYU. It'll put Cincinnati in at 4. And put Cincinnati at 4. Yeah. That's the most realistic situation with Notre Dame winning. If Clemson were to win, it'd be Alabama, Clemson, Notre Dame, Ohio State. That's it. Because I can go into so much more detail, so much more scenarios, but I don't want to because I don't want to confuse you guys. But that's my prediction. I got a scheduling video coming out tomorrow with my predictions for, what is it, the week 10 college football season? Week 10? Yeah, week 10 college football season. Yeah, with that being said, my friends over at JMP Sports Talk, they gave me a shout out on their channel. So I said I would give them one because they're super cool dudes and I appreciate the shout out. They have a podcast too. They do more like all sports type of things, not just college football and NFL. Super cool dudes. A couple of my buddies who were really, really nice. They know what they're talking about. They surprised me. They surprised me a lot. I thought it was going to be sort of like what I'm doing now, but they were way smarter. They blew my expectations out of the water. They run a great show over there. So make sure you go check them out. I'll link it down in the description. And yeah. So that'll be it for me. That was my take on the college football playoff and all of the conference championship games. I'll be coming out with a schedule video tomorrow, predicting all of the big games for the Week 10 NCAA season, football season. And then Saturday afternoon, expect a NFL video that I'll be coming out with. A lot of big news in the NFL. Again this week. Always is. So, yeah, that'll be it. Thanks all for watching. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Peace.